what do you feel has kind of been the hardest aspect of working in this field?
So this is something that I've noticed at so I've had 3 UX jobs so far. I'm still relatively new in my career. I've been doing it for 4-ish years.
Right.
But what I've noticed at every single job is that defining your, when I say defining your role as a UX designer, what I mean is everybody and their mother thinks they're a designer. If you're talking to the dev team, they're going to try and give you design suggestions. If you're talking to business analysts, they're going to try and give you design suggestions. The QA people are going to try and give you suggestions. The janitor is going to try and give you suggestions. And I will say, at my first job, unfortunately, I didn't have the mentorship that I really needed. And so I kind of turned into this this weird yes man, where people would be like, oh, I think I have a suggestion for this and this and this. And I just said yes to everybody. And it didn't do the product any favors. And then it would, I would get to the point where I thought I had something ready. And then I would show it to people and be like, hey, what do you think of this? And then they'd be like, oh, why don't you do this, this, this? And it's just it was just this never ending cycle where, it wasn't getting done. And I'm just kind of sitting here like, what do I do? And I think one of the absolutely most critical skills for a UX designer to do, and I know this is uncomfortable, but to put your foot down and to say, say no, and not just like, oh, I'm not going to do that. But so one example I've encountered in my career is that I was working on this, I'm leaving it vague on purpose, but there was this one product I was working on, and I showed it to a developer, and he said, and he was, okay, no, actually, let me rephrase this. So we've got the dev team showed me in like a mock-up that they made that it was totally out of proportion. It was not what I wanted. And, of course, they're thinking in their dev mind. So they're thinking very in the box rationally. It was like, oh, what do you,
but it works. Yeah.
Good. And I just couldn't, and I was like, guys, this isn't going to work. This modal is not set up the way we need it to be set up. And I think what I would like to do is I would like to redesign it to show you guys how I think how it should be laid out. And so as I'm going back and forth with them, one of the dev people says, well, I think it's I'm okay with whatever you do as long as you don't have to scroll to get to the bottom. And it's like it was like a 2-column, and I was like, we need to put it into a 1-column. And that I realized that was one of those situations where very early UX Sam would have been like, oh, okay. I wouldn't have really asked why. Where now the way I approached that situation is I said, and realizing that I'm talking to a developer, my way of saying no was, is there any kind of specific developer reason, like a technical reason as to why it needs to be 2 columns instead of 1? And that's just my way of kind of subtly saying like, hey, I'm the UX designer. I'm the designer here. You're the developer. You do your job. I won't tell you how to do your dev team, your dev job, but don't tell me how to do my UX job. And so I kind of put it back in his court. It's like, is there any reason from your end as to why we shouldn't design it this way? And he was like, oh no, it's just personal preference. And I was like, great, I'm just going to do it my way then.
Love that. Yep. It's good to be collaborative, but you have to, make the final decisions. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's honestly one of the biggest bits of advice that I would give to any junior is learn how to professionally say no, and not just say no just to be a jerk, but say no for the right reasons, because otherwise everybody's going to try and tell you how to be a designer, and you're just going to get caught in this this tug of war contest between 30 different people, and it's going to go nowhere.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things for people to get used to is you really need to grow some pretty thick skin, because what we do is visual. Even if you're not working on the final visual design, you're putting up wireframes, you're putting up prototypes, those things. Everybody can see it, so everybody's going to comment on it. And having the wherewithal to, take those arrows and still, stick to your guns is tough. It's a skill that people have to build up. So that's good.